Okay, guys, today we're talking about plot. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex, and I am a writer and professional ghostwriter. And on this channel, we talk about all things storytelling, creativity, ghostwriting, and helping others turn their ideas into finished manuscripts. And today we're going to be talking about plotting. So I've heard a lot of different things about plotting in the writing community. I've heard, plotter versus pantser, or somebody kind of in the middle. But I just want you to hear me out on this. I'm not talking about plotting as like a 50-page color-coded thing where you have mapped out every single detail of the story. I'm thinking about plotting more as a big picture. So when you're coming up with your idea and you're writing it out for the first time, how does it look to you? What is the beginning, middle, and end? How are the characters developing, and why should we be emotionally invested in them? Those are kind of the things I'm looking for in a brief summary of your story. So let me tell you a little bit about my personal process. So before I start writing, I like to sit down and write a maybe 1 to 2 page summary of the entire story. Who are we following? What are they doing? Why should we care about it? And what are the biggest conflicts and how do they overcome them? Even if it's super brief, like bare bones, like this guy goes over here to this location and slays the dragon and captures the princess and takes her out of the castle. It's like you get the gist of what's going on, but it's not the full story. There isn't any detail. And that's kind of what we're looking for. We're looking for a brief sort of snapshot of what your bigger picture is going to be. This is super important because when you're drafting your first novel, you need structure of some kind. Because when you're writing your first novel and you've never written before and you've never taken any writing classes like I have, it's super intimidating to just jump in and expect to start writing chapter by chapter and then realize you don't know what your characters look like. You don't know what they do. You don't understand where they emotionally are at the beginning of the book and where they emotionally are at the end of the book. And those aren't things that you need to like suss out right away, but it is something that should generally be explained in that summary that you're writing. When future you is going back and is actually starting the drafting process, oh yeah, the guy, he goes to the castle and he slays the dragon and then he saves the princess and they ride off into the sunset together. And having those little key details will help you when you're drafting, and it'll help you kind of anchor your story, because now you won't have just like, okay, so he rode into the castle. Oh no, what does he do now? So he rode into the castle. There's a troll. There's a dragon. There's an encyclopedia. So having some sort of general outline can often be helpful, especially when you're starting your first draft. One more thing that I would like to mention is that if I sat down and told you my story, you would know who the main character is, what they want, what's standing in their way, what they have to confront internally, and how it ends. It's not overly detailed, but it's complete. And that's kind of the point that we're looking for. We're looking for a complete overarching story, right? An act 1, an act 2, a climax, act 3. How does that look? And how would your story follow that progression if you were to write a summary or if you were to draft a novel? Those are things you need in order to kind of start that process. So the second thing that is also important is character arc. A lot of plot can be explained away. What can't be explained away is a character's emotional impact on the plot. So things you should know kind of going into creating your characters. I need to know how the character changes, not just how it happens. I need to know what flaw do they have in the beginning? What things are they dealing with as challenges? Who are they by the end? If I can't explain these things clearly, the plot isn't ready. Now I'm gonna leave you with one last little nugget. I call this the Mary Shelley visual. So one time, years ago, I heard a story about Mary Shelley coming up with the story of Frankenstein while trying to tell the scariest story during a gathering with other writers. Now, I don't know how historically accurate that is, but I just love the imagery of it. Can you imagine Emily Bronte, Mary Shelley, the other Bronte sister, whose name I can't remember right now, sorry, sitting around the campfire trying to tell the scariest stories and coming up with a amazing novel that is still relevant to this day? I can't think of anything better. That sounds incredible. But whenever I start to think about a story and start to think and plan, I think about that visual, and I think about, could I tell this around a campfire? If I was to just tell somebody my story out now, like out loud, if I was just to explain what my story is, would they understand? Would they be able to comprehend? Would they understand who my characters were and what their biggest flaws and weaknesses are? Would they understand how they overcame those flaws? Plotting isn't about complexity, it's about clarity. If you can tell it simply, you can write it powerfully. Thanks for being here. If you're serious about storytelling, whether you're writing your own story or looking for support, everything will be linked in the description box down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.